Ace Bailey is a 6'10" small forward out of Georgia, and is currently ranked as a top 5 player in the 2024 class. He's recently drawn comparisons to players such as Paul George, Tracy McGrady, and Kevin Durant. As of right now, the only player in the nation ranked above him is Cooper Flagg, but today I'm going to make the case for why I think Ace Bailey should be the #1 prospect and a future #1 draft pick. So let's start by talking about what type of player and player archetype has been running the league for the past 10 to 15 years. Especially recently, we're talking about 6'8" to 6'10" small forwards who can dribble, pass, shoot, and be the primary ball handler for their offense. So when I think of guys like that, I'm thinking of Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Paul George, Luka Doncic, Kawhi Leonard's another one, and you even go back 30 to 40 years to a guy like Larry Bird. He was winning championships and dominating the league. And I already know what some of you are wondering, oh well, does Ace Bailey play defense or does he only care about offense? I can promise you that if you watch this kid in person, you know that most importantly, he's a competitor, and most importantly, the kid competes on defense. I mean, seriously, his shot blocking ability and just ability to alter shots in general is pretty amazing. So even though defense in today's NBA isn't that big of a deal as it was in the past, I think that this kid has a chance to be a two-way superstar. Draft Express's 2025 mock draft just came out, and it has Cooper Flagg going #1 overall to the Wizards, Ace Bailey going #2 overall to the Hornets. Ace Bailey is currently committed to Rutgers. They also have #3 overall player Dylan Harper committed there, and although Rutgers might not have the success that a Duke and a Cooper Flagg has, I think that Ace Bailey's game is a much more pro-style, NBA-style game, and I think Rutgers is going to allow him to showcase that. For instance, I think that if Ace Bailey would have gone to a blue blood like a Kentucky, like a Duke, like a Kansas, he might have just gotten lost in the system, not be able to showcase his full talent, but I think that he's really going to be allowed to rock out there in a two-man basically system with him and Dylan Harper at Rutgers. And the isolation style that he's going to be allowed to play up there, it'll be easier to see how well he's going to translate to the next level. As we all know, no matter how good the player is, college basketball is much more system-based. So as far as Ace Bailey being the #1 pick, I think that he did make the correct decision in terms of system and program to go to be able to showcase his talents and why he should be the #1 pick. Not to mention that if he is the #1 pick, he's going to be going to a sorry organization like the Washington Wizards. So going to a lower level program like a Rutgers is going to give us an easier and quicker insight to how Ace Bailey is able to carry an entire franchise or organization on his shoulders, when it might not be as easy to see that for a guy like Cooper Flagg because he's going to be going to Duke with a bunch of other 5 stars and McDonald's All-Americans. All of that stuff is kind of up to your judgment and is subjective, so I understand that. But what isn't up to judgment is Ace Bailey's skill set, and in today's NBA, shooting is king. And while right now I admit that Ace Bailey might be more of a volume style shooter, when you're 6'10", have as high of a release and as pretty a form as he does, it's going to be really hard for anyone in the world, not just at the high school level, but I'm talking college and NBA players, to be able to stop this guy, especially when you consider his relentless mindset when it comes to scoring and shooting the basketball. Although he doesn't come from a Montverde or an Oak Hill, he comes from McEachern. That's the school that Sharif Cooper came from, and they still play a national schedule, so Ace Bailey's already learning and knowing how to be a pro, so I'm not worried about that whatsoever. But since he is a wing, he's going to be guarded by guys like Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, so it's going to be difficult for him to get shots off if he didn't have such a high release. And the beautiful part about him is he's not just a scorer, he can catch and shoot as well. So whatever you need him to do offensively, he can do. If you need him to spot up and be a catch and shoot guy like Michael Porter, he can do that. And he also shows the ability to create his own shot off the dribble like a Jason Tatum or Kevin Durant. Something that really blows my mind about Ace Bailey though, especially for his age, and what makes me so confident in his comparisons to a Kevin Durant or to a Jason Tatum, is how polished his footwork is in the mid-post. Catching the ball in the mid-post and being able to score with your back to the basket over either shoulder is extremely necessary whenever you're a 6'8" to 6'10" wing in today's league. Ace Bailey is already showing his ability to do that. I watched him in the Basketball Tournament of Champions, and I mean, he was searching out mid-post touches with his back to the basket, which is crazy. I mean, no matter how good, I haven't seen a player do that since Jason Tatum in high school, as much as he does at least. That shows he already understands what spots he needs to get to, and it also shows that he's 17 years old working on shots that are going to be translatable to the NBA for the rest of his career. These are shots that don't really rely too much on athleticism, they rely on footwork, technique, and skill. He also wouldn't be able to do them without his 6'10" frame, his high release, and his ability to shoot the ball, so it's a perfect blend between his skill and development and his natural God-given gifts. So he's a mature, level-headed basketball player. So as we can see right here and kind of what we've already talked about, we already know what Ace Bailey's strengths are as a basketball player, but I also want to be fair and let's take a look at some of his weaknesses. NBADraft.net says he has room to get stronger, but his frame should fill out over time. Says he can work on being more efficient and better shot selection, kind of what I was mentioning earlier about him being a volume shooter at this point in his career, but I think his overall mechanics and basketball IQ that he showcased will allow him to increase his efficiency over time, just like every NBA player does pretty much. Something that I want to talk about right here that it says is it mentions that he can dribble high and play 2 upright, that his crossovers and changing directions, aren't always smooth, and lacks wiggle trying to get by his guy, which often ends up in a mid-range step back. However, I've seen enough of his handle in person and through film to let me know that he's going to be an elite ball handler in the NBA someday, and I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to need a million dribbles to get to his spots and where he needs to go. I agree, sometimes he can be upright. Ace Bailey's best comparison in the NBA is probably Paul George, and I promise you when you compare Ace Bailey's film at age 17 and 18 to Paul George's film at age 17 and 18, Ace Bailey is much more polished and has much more wiggle. With the amount of resources and access to trainers that Ace Bailey is going to have once he does get into the league, I'm not worried about that developing at all. The important part is that he has a 6'10" wiry frame that is going to be able to put on good basketball muscle. The sky is the limit for this kid, and this may just be important to me, maybe not you guys, but he passes the eye test, dude. I mean, this is a prototype wing for what's going to dominate the league for years to come and has already dominated the league for over a decade now. I don't think there's any player in America currently that looks more like an NBA player that's not in the NBA than Ace Bailey. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments though, and if you think he should be the #1 pick, and if not, who should be. I just want to say thank you guys so much for the support, and I'll see you guys soon.